Hello beautiful people of the internet, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to do a video that I've been putting off for kind of a while, but I'm ready to do it now because I want to help you guys out a bit. So I know a lot of people in this game really struggle with building. They see everyone else's builds and they're like, oh my gosh, why can't I build like that? And honestly, that's exactly how I feel for dream snaps. However, building has always been fine for me for some reason. To me, it's a science and you can like really perfect it if you just like have the same method, the same plan of attack every single time you go in for a build. So I'm kind of gonna break down my process for you guys into smaller steps that will hopefully let you guys be successful as well. So the first thing that I do want to talk about is the natural borders of the biomes. So it might not be super obvious to everyone, but I feel like there's like a natural groove to every location, not as much in Eternity Isle, but definitely in the main valley. You can kind of see where things can be maybe like sectioned off. So like here in the main plaza, we obviously have the big square in the front, and then you have these three paths branching off. The most obvious thing in my opinion is to branch your paths off of this, and especially for the plaza, this goes straight down to the main staircase, and then into the meadow we have this staircase going into this staircase. So it's really easy to just kind of follow these natural paths. Some of them are a little bit more like messy than others. That's why I use like these pebbles on this side of the plaza, because it doesn't just go straight from this staircase to this staircase. And same thing over here, there's kind of like this indentation in the rock that blocks you from making a straight path. But when it is really clear, I like to section things off like this. I think it's super important to section off your areas because when you do, you have less space that you have to take on at one time. If you've watched some of my speed builds or any of my lives where I am building, you'll see that certain sections were like their own build. Pretty much this area for Scrooge was its own thing. This little dorm build was its own thing. This part of Remy's restaurant was its own thing, and Remy's house was its own thing. So I kind of have like 4 builds going on in here, and then just this main path in the middle. For the meadow, I had 2 like bigger builds. This was campus, and this was the boutique plaza area. I don't even know what to call it, but I still have it sectioned off between one half and the other half, and then I'll have this area by itself as well, which as you can see is still kind of sectioned off from this pathway. I have like this mental line in my head that stops right here, and that's why I only decorated up to that line. My second tip is use the trees and the colors around your build as inspiration. So yes, a lot of these are my own trees that I put into the build, but some of these, like this one on the staircase right here, and this one in the forest right here, those were already in the game and they're not removable. I'm not saying you need to just use the trees that are around your build at all times, but I do think it looks a lot more natural and a lot better that way. I mean, even the game itself, it puts these random like red trees all over the place, so I do try to add those in now and again, but I think if you look at the overall aesthetic of all of these trees together, it just looks better when you're not throwing a lot of different types in. It's also better to just like use the same maybe 2 or 3 types of trees in a general area because it'll look more cohesive that way. Same thing for my meadow. It is like sectioned off into 2 halves where I have only maple trees on this side, and then I have like these swamp trees on this side, which shouldn't work in the meadow logistically if I'm following my own rule, because I should be using just these maples, but because it's transitioning into the glade, I let it slide, and I'll put more of these maples in this little area. Certain tree types are made specifically for certain biomes. The birches are technically like made for the plaza. Maples are technically made for the meadow. Fir trees, forest, snowy fir trees, frosted heights. So if you are struggling to figure out what to do, I would suggest just kind of using what the game already gives you. It's the same thing with the rocks and the flowers. It has a theme that it wants you to kind of follow if you take inspiration from what the valley looked like before you did anything to it. For my next tip, we're gonna take a random empty area. Please don't judge it, is not decorated at all. But what I like to do before I start going going into a build is look through literally all of the items that I have, and I take out anything that I want to use. So say I want to do like an office build. Let's just go with something easy. We have this file basket, then we have a vending machine, then we have a sink. Even if they don't match, even if I'm probably not going to use the item, if it generally fits the theme or looks like it would look good in the build, then I'm gonna do it. And also, while we're on this topic already, it is really good to look through things in the same universe or with the same color scheme, so you can just click the filter button up here and filter out whatever you want. So a lot of these items I'm noticing are Monsters Inc. That's where we get like a lot of officey stuff. So I'm just gonna filter it out to Monsters Inc. and then continue just grabbing a bunch of random stuff. And another tip I have is to use items that you think make sense for the characters or the environment around it. You kind of want to personalize it a bit. So say I'm doing this officey build for Mike Wazowski. Maybe this is his like personal home office. Obviously, we want to have all of these officey things because it's just what it is. But also, let's think about his personality. So he's a little bit of a jokester, so we probably want maybe a microphone in there. So here we go. We can get a little microphone, maybe a little speaker, just something to kind of personalize it, make it something a little more special for specifically the character we're building for. If we were maybe doing something for like Belle, we could do a lot of books. If it was Minnie, we could do a lot of flowers. If it's Daisy, we could do color-coded, all pink and purple. Ariel, we could do a lot of like shells and trinkets. You kind of get the point here. And as I said earlier, we can also kind of fit the build into the environment as well, not just the character. So say like right now we're in the glade. Kind of going back to what I was saying about the trees, we could use a lot of like swamp trees, maybe do like a swamp build. One of the things that I'm going to be doing in the glade is an abandoned theme park, if I can make it work, because I'm from Louisiana and there are some abandoned theme parks and I think they look really cool. And I think like contextually it makes a lot of sense. If you're like on the beach, you might want to do like a boardwalk build or like maybe an ice cream stand or just a general like beach build. For the forest, you could do like a campsite. For Frosted Heights, you could do an ice skating rink. For Forgotten Lands, you could do a haunted house or like a haunted maze, something like that. You can really always take inspiration from the environment. Think about like what kind of things you would see in that kind of biome in real life. Now let's move to Sunlit Plateau. Another tip I have is to clean up everything in your area before you start building, because you don't want to have to go in and out of live mode just to clean stuff up. You'll feel so much better if you have a completely blank space to work with. I guess I should also say move all of the other items out of your way. Make sure it's literally a blank slate. And then my next tip I do have is to place your well in a convenient location that will give you access to the most amount of things in that specific area. Another thing I want to note is that when you do teleport to the well like this, you always come out with the bucket on your right side. Like if I wanted to be really close to Goofy's stall so that I could just like teleport and come sell stuff really quickly, I would want to put it right here so that I would spawn right here, could just really quickly walk up and go about my day, as opposed to if I turned it this way, I would have to walk out around over to this side, which it's not that big of a deal, but it can be a little bit annoying over time, and I don't feel like everyone recognizes that all you have to do is turn it a specific way to come out on one side. Next, I want to talk about the order of operations. If you do have your well in the build, I feel like that's like one of the most important things to put down. But after that, to me, the most important thing to put down is your pathing. So your pathing, kind of going back to what I said earlier about making your borders, it kind of defines like everything in the build. So if I were building right here, this is probably exactly what I would do, evident by the fact that it's naturally what I'm doing right now. I'd probably do something like this, creating these two very tiny places to work on building up. So like I said, path comes first, in my opinion, and next comes trees. This is because you can't put the trees down on paths, so that does kind of suck. However, you'll be able to put them down anywhere else after this, and they are the biggest, most demanding part of the build. You can always go in and add some later or move them around if there's space and if that's something you want to do. But I think to get a general feel for everything, it's good to start with them. And then once you do trees, I recommend bushes, because once again, they do take up a good bit of space. You think they don't until you're trying to fit them into a build that's like already been done. And I especially like to use them as accents for my borders. So this is how I would like go about a build like this, is starting with the path and then decorating all of the area around the path. Then once you have that down, that's when you can start going into your furniture. I honestly have no method of madness to my furniture outside of what I've already said. I try to throw down like my things, like my seating and my lighting first, and then honestly I usually go back for even more foliage and kind of see where they would make the most sense around those main pieces of furniture that I do put down. Another tip I do want to mention, which is actually pretty important, is you can get different sizes of your trees. So see, like this one's a little bit smaller than the one that I just got out. The only reason that's the case is because I like randomized it. Every single time you pull out a new tree, it's gonna be a different size. For some reason these are like all the same size but I think some of these other ones, like this, you'll see these are all kind of different sizes as you pull them out. So you just have to like select them a bunch of times until you get the size that you want. Eventually it'll get there. You just have to try it out a few times. And the last tip I want to give is walk around your build in live mode before you like finalize it. As you can see, I've already discovered that if I do this path, then hardwood is going to drop right here. And I can also maybe get a better look at the fact that these bushes aren't lined up properly. I can kind of see where my fishing spots are, if I can still access everything that I want to access. Also, side note, but it is really important to make sure you can still access all your fishing spots. Even if you think you don't want to, just be like really well aware of that and make sure you're like finalized on that decision, because it might come back and bite you in the ass if it's a star path duty or something like that. But yeah, just make sure all of your bearings are in order when you're running around your valley. Basically make sure it works in a practical purpose. And then this should also be obvious, but make sure you're looking at it from all different camera angles. Think about how it'll look in dream snaps if you want to use it. Think about how it looks in comparison to maybe like the other biomes. Like, I don't know, like if you want to take maybe a dream snap up here in Forgotten Lands and you want this tree from the glade in the background, then you might have all of these trees blocking the way. Just try to conceptualize it in more ways than just like what it is at face value, if that makes sense. And lastly, all part of the same tip, but make sure that you're viewing it in different times of day. So this is it when it's a little bit darker, this is it when it's extremely dark, and this is it when it's really bright. So that just gives you a good idea. You kind of want to be doing all of this like in the process of building, maybe like do 5-10 minutes and then like take a look at it from all different angles, take a look at it in different times of day, especially for day and night mode. If you do your build completely in the daytime, you might not realize that it needs some lighting, because maybe you only really play at night, you're just like building randomly in the middle of the day. But I do that a lot, where I'll build on the weekends in the morning when it's daytime, but every time I play it's after work on the weekdays, so it's like 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night and it's completely dark and my builds don't look as good because I have no lighting. I hope that these tips helped you out if you are struggling with building, or even if you're not, maybe you learned something new. I love building in this game. It's one of my favorite things to do, and I've had a lot of fun doing all of my speed builds, and I really appreciate all of you guys for watching. If you did enjoy this video, be sure to leave a like and a comment, and if you're feeling generous, you can even subscribe. I do hope to see you all in the next one, but if not, bye-bye!